Okay, good morning. Is everybody ready? Here in Iowa, we have great confidence in our criminal justice system. Our justice system has consistently been ranked among the best in the nation. Yet we know issues can arise even in a well regarded system like ours. For example, recently I created a working group to address criminal justice policy reform. They're examining a number of issues related to racial disparities in our criminal justice system. We also know that in a system operated by humans, mistakes can be made, including wrongful convictions. The National Innocence Project maintains a database of DNA exonerations throughout the country. Nationwide, there have been 330 DNA exonerations since 1989. These are cases in which it can be definitely proven that the person convicted of the crime was innocent. Wrongful convictions such as these have been identified in many of our Midwestern neighboring states, including Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, Minnesota, and Nebraska. But to date, there have been no post conviction DNA exonerations in Iowa. Many Iowa law enforcement agencies take steps to prevent wrongful convictions. For example, a number of agencies throughout the state have implemented best practices for the use of eyewitness identification. Our own Department of Public Safety has adopted a policy requiring interrogations to be electronically recorded. However, sometimes preventive measures such as these are not enough. For that reason, Iowa has a process known as post conviction relief, which is a legal procedure in which mistakes can be brought to the court's attention to be corrected. But Iowa has been missing a systemic approach to identifying and handling these cases. I'm pleased to announce that the systemic gap begins being closed today as we announce the creation of the Wrongful Conviction Division of the Office of Public Defender. The Wrongful Conviction Division will systemically review and identify potential cases involving wrongful convictions and pursue all legal remedies available to their clients. It is also important to note the potential implications regarding racial disparities in our criminal justice system. 70% of the 330 DNA exonerations have involved defendants who were minorities. While the Wrongful Convictions Division efforts won't be just restricted to reviewing those cases involving minorities, the creation of this division does represent another step that we can take accuracy in the Iowa criminal justice system. And now I'd like to turn it over to our state public defender, Adam Gregg, to tell you more about this new project that the public defender is taking on. Adam?
What's an acceptable error rate for our criminal justice system? Even if we get it right 99% of the time and only get it wrong 1% of the time, that would mean there are over 80 innocent people currently incarcerated in Iowa prisons. And at what cost? To the state, it's about $34,000 per year per inmate. But what about to their families, to their lives, and to their sanity? And at what cost to public safety? If the wrong person is convicted, it means the real perpetrator remains at large and escapes justice. Today, we're excited to announce the creation of the Wrongful Conviction Division to systematically review and litigate post-conviction relief cases. Thank you to the governor for the opportunity to be here today and for your support of this effort. Leading our efforts on behalf of the Office of the State Public Defender will be Audrey McGinn. Audrey comes to us from the California Innocence Project. She has helped found 10 innocence projects throughout Latin America and literally wrote a manual on how to do it in 3 different languages. She has helped teach law school courses on wrongful convictions, and through her work at the California Innocence Project, She has assisted in the exoneration of 7 innocent individuals. That's a long way of saying she's really good. Audrey won't be alone in these efforts. We are partnering with the existing Innocence Project of Iowa and the Midwest Innocence Project to handle Iowa cases. And I want to thank the representatives from those organizations who are in the room today. Our partnership will initially focus on hair comparison analysis cases. The FBI recently admitted to significant errors in testimony in cases where hair particles are microscopically examined and compared. It turns out much of their testimony was junk science. In fact, FBI agents testified inappropriately in 95% of federal cases, which were jointly reviewed by the FBI and the Innocence Project. The problem is that those same agents trained thousands of state investigators in those same methods, including agents with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. The Wrongful Conviction Division is therefore partnering with the Innocence Project of Iowa and the Midwest Innocence Project to review old hair comparison cases, and will seek post-conviction relief where there is factual proof of the individual's innocence. Before we open it up to questions, I just want to say how proud I am to be a part of this administration. I've had numerous conversations with Department of Public Safety Commissioner Roxanne Ryan and DCI Lab Director Bruce Reeve. They've been cooperating fully with us as we've worked together to identify cases which need review. This shows to me the integrity of DCI operations here in Iowa. They want to get it right, and they want to help us make sure that as a state we get it right. Thank you, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, okay.
As I mentioned, we've been working closely with Division of Criminal Investigation. They have already provided us with about 100 case files of cases that involve some level of hair comparison analysis. That doesn't mean all 100 of those will require litigation, but those are the ones that we'll begin reviewing from the get-go. Correct. Well, we're partnering fully in the intake and review process. So we'll be working with the Midwest Innocence Project and the Innocence Project of Iowa for joint screening of cases and joint investigation of cases. Ultimately, they will be litigated by Audrey McGinn, who is the director of our Wrongful Conviction Division. But that may also have assistance from the existing Innocence Projects in like a second chair capacity.
I would also point out that in addition to this Innocence Project, we've been able to solve some old cases and get convictions due to DNA evidence that wasn't available for. So what we're doing is we really think justice is a delicate balance, and we need to protect the innocent, and we need to be able to find and convict the guilty. And so that's what this is all about. And you probably noticed in recent years, some of those old cases have because of DNA evidence, have been able to be opened and convictions have been obtained. So we're trying to, we feel that justice needs to be a balance, and certainly those have been wrongfully convicted. We need to correct that mistake. Yes. Go ahead.
We have hired one attorney for this position. Our costs are primarily in the personnel costs to pay her salary. Her salary is approximately $80,000.
So this comes out of the public defender budget. Public defender, of course, is funded as part of the state appropriations. No, that's Audrey. She is the person, but there will be other staff people that will work with her, and you have the Innocence Project from the outside. So she'll be the one coordinating this, I guess, is the best way to, and she'll be the lead attorney when there is a case that needs to be handled.
Otter's actually here, by the way. Raise your hand, Otter.
And she told me that I asked her why she decided to move back from California, and she said that she's originally from Nebraska. So we're glad you came back to the Midwest.
Not that we're aware of. We haven't gotten into that level of analysis of the case files that have been provided to us, but we'll be beginning that in earnest here now that we've announced the creation of the division. It's going to be a while. These cases take a long time to screen, to investigate, and ultimately to litigate. So we expect it could be a couple years before there's actually a final exoneration as this goes through the legal process. There may be cases that we identify and make filings on well ahead of that, but in terms of a final exoneration, it's a long legal process.
Well, they can contact the state public defender, or they can contact the Innocent Project as part of that process.
Well, a couple things. I mean, the big instigator was the announcement from the FBI that there were these significant errors in their testimony and the realization that those same agents had trained Iowa agents. But also just found that it was actually from a conversation that my first assistant and I had. We found that we both had an interest in innocence work, and it's been something that's been in the media in recent years, whether it's the John Grisham book, The Innocent Man, or the Serial podcast. There's been a lot of focus on innocence work in recent years. And so with that announcement from the FBI and the joint interest that my staff and I had, we brought this to the governor and to Roxanne Ryan, the Commissioner of Public Safety, and said, why don't we work together to identify these types of cases? And from the get-go, Commissioner Ryan has been all on board. She is committed to getting it right and has been working with us from the very beginning on this. Mhm. What it really was is an overstatement of the level of a match that can be identified. Specifically, there were, so this is a situation where a hair is found at a crime scene and then they try to connect that to a defendant. And so typically what would happen is that an expert witness would come and talk about the fact that they have looked at both of these hairs under a microscope. But of course, that's only relevant if you can tell the jury how significant that is from a statistical perspective. The problem was that they would overstate the statistical significance. So 3 types of errors have been identified. First, that the examiner stated that the hair could be associated with one individual to the total exclusion of all others. The other way that they would overstate that is to say that the examiner would provide testimony which implied that you can assign some type of statistical weight to a microscopic hair association. In other words, this only happens 1 in 10,000 times. Another example is the examiner would cite to the number of cases that they've worked in their career in the lab, and then the number of samples from different individuals that could not be distinguished from one another as a way to kind of overstate the predictive value of what that match means or what those matches mean.
Yes, that's the point. Once we got DNA, and DNA is solid, reliable information that can identify the individual, and that information, and so this is not used anymore. This hair analysis is not used anymore. Is that
Very
correct?
rarely, not for this purpose. You would use DNA analysis now.
I think prior to 1989, is that?
Well, what we asked for from the Division of Criminal Investigation was give us your case files from 1980 through 2000. And in the mid 90s, they started switching over from the hair comparison analysis to the DNA analysis. Circling back just a second, one of the things that's exciting about this is if we're able to identify cases in which there were mistakes that were made, that hair should still be under glass somewhere. And we should be able to use DNA technology in order to test those hairs and find out whether they got the right person. And if they didn't, we will have the post-conviction relief process in order to correct that mistake. And Iowa, by the way, Iowa already has a statute on the books allowing for DNA testing of evidence, which was not previously tested at the time of conviction. Yeah, we expect these will be cases from the 80s and early 90s. Correct. Or perhaps they hadn't used DNA analysis and only used the hair microscopy.
Well, the whole idea is post-conviction relief is designed to correct a mistake that has occurred. And, you know, we need to investigate to determine whether mistakes were made. And if they were, this division of Public Defender's Office will take the lead to move forward with post-conviction relief to see that the innocent people that may have been convicted are represented and they get their day in court. Okay.
The legislature also already has enacted a statute that allows for compensation for somebody who's been wrongfully convicted and wrongfully imprisoned. So the extent of compensation, that's a policy judgment the legislature has already made, and the extent of any potential compensation would just depend on the facts of the case. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe it amounts to about $50 per day.
Okay. No. That the governor does have a significant authority with regard to pardons and things like that. That's a totally separate thing. This is a normal judicial process, but the chief executive of the state is given executive clemency authority. That includes pardons, restoration of firearms rights. It includes commutations and various things. But don't confuse this with that. This is a judicial process. It is not an executive process. The executive authority is granted by the Constitution solely to the governor, and that is a separate check on the judicial system, and it's one that we take very seriously and we use very sparingly, but certainly where there is an injustice, it can be utilized. But don't confuse that with this. Well, hair analysis was not used in that case. I was in my early days. So I started law practice in 1974 and I practiced in 1982. And as a young attorney, oftentimes you were assigned, you were basically asked by the court to defend certain criminal defendants. And I did not a lot, but I did some of that, yes. And this was the most famous one, was the guy that jumped out the window. But that wasn't the big case with him. This individual was also accused of assault to commit murder on a member of the highway patrol. And yeah, we tried that. I got a change of venue and we tried that case in Charles City, but that's too long a story to go into here. No. No. No, I didn't have any cases that involved hair analysis, no. Yes.
I have a question, not on this topic, but related in regard to corrections.
Yep.
California last week became the first state in the nation to address, have their prison system, criminal justice system, address the place of transgender inmates, and they specifically developed a procedure to allow for gender reassignment surgery for inmates who are transgender. Iowa does have and has had transgender inmates. Should Iowa, state of Iowa, be using taxpayer funds to pay for sexual reassignment surgery for transgender inmates?
This is the first time that question has ever come up. And I would certainly want to consult with the Department of Corrections with regard to this and also find out what the cost would be and whatever. So, you know, I think that's something that's a huge public policy issue that the state has previously not addressed.
I have another question, in regards to Board of Regents, as you're probably aware, the controversy continues at University of Iowa. And last week, we had a member of the Board of Regents say he was unhappy with the process. We've got students unhappy, faculty unhappy. Now you've got a member of the Board of Regents who is questioning the process. Isn't it about time to just throw out this process and start over when you don't have confidence that?
Well, I would point out the last time that Regents went through this, choosing a president of the University of Iowa, they had similar controversy. And also, when actually when Sally Mason was chosen, but before her, the process, you know, they had several problems with the process, and then there was also a lawsuit involving that as well. So, but here's what I would encourage people to do. I think the Regents have had a great track record of approving of choosing great presidents. Stephen Leith at Iowa State, Bill Rood at the University of Northern Iowa, and I believe that Bruce, the new president at the University of Iowa, ought to be given the same opportunity that the other presidents have had. And I think he's approaching it in the right way, in a very thoughtful way, meeting privately with faculty and with students and assuring them that he intends to be a good listener. I had a similar situation when I was chosen to be the president of Des Moines University. I'm not an academic, I'm not a doctor, and I was chosen by the trustees to be the president. There were a lot of the faculty, I was suspect, I guess you might say, because I wasn't an academic and I wasn't a doctor, but I'm proud to say that over the 6 years and 3 months that I was there, I was able to win them over. And indeed, when I left, I did an annual State of the University report to the faculty, and I did question and answers with that. And after I gave kind of a wrap-up presentation on the state of the university in October of 2009, and I retired in order to consider running again for governor. The president of the faculty said, you know, I hate to see you leave because you've been the best leader we've ever had. And I'm a Democrat, but I'm going to support you for governor because we need leadership. So that was, you know, in a private meeting with the faculty, but I'm very proud that I was able to win over the faculty. And I guess Bruce Harold should be given a similar opportunity to be able to do that and work with the faculty and the students, as well as respecting the fact that the regents unanimously chose him. I'm getting one, but I haven't gotten it yet. But my wife's already asked me that question, so it's just a matter of days. So we'll do that. Thank you.